welcome back to the channel. This will be my team selection for Matchday 5 in Club World Cup Fantasy, and over half of my 50-man squad is either eliminated or suspended, so you could definitely say I'm in a bit of a pickle. It might have been a decent sort of week in Matchday 4, but now there are some big issues for the quarterfinals and beyond. I can get to a starting 11 using 4 free transfers, but if I want to make additional moves and maximize my bench to have different options to come on if necessary, then I would have to take some hits. Would it be a -3, -6, or possibly even more? That's what I'll discuss in this video with all my possible transfer plans, which will be finalized in tomorrow's deadline stream. Smash the like button and subscribe if you're new if you enjoy my content. Our aim is to get this to over 200 likes on YouTube, and let's keep on pushing towards new goals like 445 subscribers. You can also see the league on screen. There's a code in the description. The same goes to the top left hand corner of your screen, so there are different ways of joining the FPL Dylan Mini League, and check all the other links in the description for my Patreon and the championships, for links to my videos, marksman other perks, the Discord server, Club World Cup Fantasy League, and Spotify can also be found in the description. And I will be gifting 10 memberships in the upcoming deadline stream, so keep your eyes peeled for that as well. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. As usual, I'll start off with a review of the previous match day, and the round of 16 was fairly decent. I got off to a great start with a qualification booster because I quadrupled up on Paris Saint-Germain in the 4-0 win against Inter Miami, one of the only games where I got the prediction spot on in terms of the scoreline, and Donnarumma produced 10 points as a result. I just looked at the knockout stages and thought PSG have a great chance of winning the whole thing, or at least reaching the final, so having Donnarumma from that side of the bracket was very appealing to me. But it is Bayern Munich in the quarterfinals, and if PSG were to advance, it's either Real Madrid or Borussia Dortmund, so things don't get any easier for them, but Donnarumma remains one of the best goalkeepers in the game. As for my defensive line, one man carried me in Hakimi, who I also captained. I had a decision to make because I had 8 points secured from Angel Di Maria, who scored a penalty against Chelsea. Do I stick with those 8 points or go for the jugular? And since I had so many captaincy windows remaining, I decided to take a bit of an aggressive move there, and I went for Hakimi, who scored again, did another waddle, got the clean sheet, the qualification booster, active, getting the 2 additional points and all of that. So he actually got 16 points as his base score. But as I discussed in my recent videos, for some reason, that doesn't count towards the captaincy score. So he actually got 15 points here as my captain instead of the 16 he actually got. But it doesn't matter. It's still a very healthy return, and he was the highest scoring player in my 50-man squad. Both Stanisic and Svensson were quite disappointing, but at least they qualified for the next round. Otherwise, it would be an absolute disaster for my squad. But they both failed to keep a clean sheet, and Svensson scored back in matchday 3 when I sold him on the wild card. And this time round, when I sold Garassi, we all know what he did. He turned into bloody R9. That is absolutely typical, isn't it? But I think they're both good options in their own right in Club World Cup Fantasy. But facing Real Madrid, I'd still back Los Blancos to go through to the semi-finals. Going into the midfield, it was definitely much better than the defensive line. However, I've got Joe Bellingham suspended, and Angel Di Maria is on the plane back to his country. Actually, he's going to go to Argentina to sign for Rosario Central, his boyhood club. The likes of Elise obviously progressed to the next round, but he conceded a penalty, so he lost the point as a result, and he was very disappointing. In a 4-2 win over Flamengo, it was Harry Kane stealing the show, and Elise had his worst game in quite a while, especially in a Bayern Munich shirt. Kvaratskhelia did nothing against Inter Miami. He came close on several occasions, but it's still a healthy 5-pointer because of the qualification booster, and Doué got the assist for the own goal, one of the first few kind of passages of play in the first half, and I think he's been really good in this tournament. He's just not getting the goals or the assists, but I think that will come with more game time, and I will show you a predicted 11 for both Paris Saint-Germain and Bayern Munich. As for my front line, I had Lautaro Martinez and Erling Haaland, and guess what? They're both also eliminated, and the same goes for my entire front line. Just look at my bench. Sommer, Dumfries, Aït-Nouri, and Igor Jesus. Bye-bye, see you later. I am absolutely in a bad position. Let's just put it that way. But it is still possible to get over this situation and still perform really strongly in the quarterfinals and beyond. And that's what this video will do. With these transfer plans I'll discuss, I'll aim to match the best team and wildcard squads that I published recently and compete with those managers. But in order to do so, I have to take hits, so that's where the advantage for the wildcarders will certainly come into play. But it was still a decent green arrow of less than 1,000 places. It's better than nothing, but the way it started, I was around 8k in the world, so it was a massive rank rise actually, but I think towards the end I had less coverage in certain teams, and I think I made a few mistakes here. Not going for any Real Madrid player was certainly one of them, and also not having any Chelsea coverage as well. They now have a clear route to the final on paper, and they still have to beat Palmeiras, who are a decent side, but they're without two key defenders in Piquerez and Gustavo Gomez due to suspension. Then it's Al Hilal or Fluminense, so that's why Chelsea are actually rivaling PSG as the favourites to win this competition right now. But let's discuss some transfer plans in every single position, and I don't usually recommend taking a -3 hit for a goalkeeper, for example, but I think it could be worth it in this case. So Jan Sommer to Robert Sanchez is something I'm definitely considering actually, and it also gives me 0.1 million extra in budget. Not that it's really important. Now, the only concern I have about this is that Sanchez is liable to rotation at times by Jorgensen, and in the Europa Conference League we saw Sanchez not feature whatsoever, and Jorgensen was the kind of undisputed cup competition goalkeeper. And in this competition, we have seen Robert Sanchez benched on one occasion, so this could be slightly risky. And if you are backing Palmeiras to go through or keep a clean sheet, you can go for Weverton instead. And I think goalkeepers is really difficult to narrow down because you've got Thibaut Courtois, who is a great option in his own right. But since I've got Donnarumma and they would face each other in the semi-finals, I'd probably avoid him and instead go for a goalkeeper on the other side of the bracket, which I'll also show you towards the end of this podcast. You've also got Fabio from Fluminense or Bono from Al Hilal, depending on which team you're backing. One thing I discussed in some of my recent podcasts is balancing your coverage of Fluminense and Al Hilal and then going all in on the likes of Chelsea, Paris Saint-Germain, and especially Real Madrid, in my personal opinion. Now, going into my defender transfer, Aït-Nouri to Garcia is on the cards. I would like to have one Real Madrid defender or Courtois in goal, and since I've got Donnarumma already, as discussed a few minutes ago, I'd rather go for Garcia in my defensive line to cover Los Blancos defensively. In the midfield though, this is where things get very spicy. Ángel Di María out for Pedro Neto. Ideally, I would go for Cole Palmer, but we all know that he's expensive, and it would mean avoiding one of those 11 million forwards like Vinicius Jr., Mbappe, and Harry Kane, which isn't the end of the world to be fair, because you've also got Mangano from Fluminense, you've got Leonardo from Al Hilal, and a few other options who offer great value, even Guirassy. But I'll be completely honest, I think Real Madrid will advance to the semi-finals, and I'd rather avoid going for more Dortmund players. I've got Svensson already, and Joe Bellingham is now suspended. But in this position, I think a Chelsea midfielder is the priority, and Pedro Neto is accessible with that 6.5 million price tag, and I think he could be one of the best options in the game. And last but not least is my kind of highlighted forward transfer, Igor Jesus out for Harry Kane, who was a huge disappointment back in Matchday 1, but I could forgive him if I buy him in and he does the business against Paris Saint-Germain, and that would mean three Bayern Munich players with Stanisic, Elise, and Kane himself, and also plenty of PSG players in the process. I would have 4 from the Parisians, but I would back PSG a little bit more to go through to the next round. But it could be a case of buying Kane, getting a goal or two, they're knocked out, and you're still quite happy with the end result. So this will be my provisional team selection for Matchday 5, assuming that I take a -12 hit, which I am open to, by the way. Call me crazy, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, but Robert Sanchez would be my favourite goalkeeper to buy in for Matchday 5 and 6 actually, with their route to the final. And the Blues are one of the best teams to double up on defensively for the quarterfinals, and I will show you the goal scorer and clean sheet probabilities very soon. Going into my 3 defenders, I've got Hakimi, Stanisic, and Joao Cancelo. I am looking to buy an Al Hilal defender, and whilst you could definitely make a case for those Fluminense defenders like Freitas and Samuel Javier, I would favour Al Hilal a little bit more if I was really, pushed down to it into a 50-50 call. Who are you going to back? And to be fair, I got quite a lot of them wrong in the round of 16 anyway. I do have some Bayern Munich and PSG conflicts, and that's essentially the bulk of my pre-existing squad. So imagine I'm not in a great position right now, and that's where the hits would come into play. But Hakimi can do well against any team in the world right now because of the attacking threat, and he's not really a defender by trade. He is decent defensively, but he can be exposed at times, but it doesn't really matter because in this game and also in UCL Fantasy, he delivers time after time. In the midfield, I've got Doué, Kvaratskhelia, Elise, and potentially 2 new signings in Pedro Neto and Arias. Now, one thing I'm considering to kind of avoid a -12 hit is instead of going for Robert Sanchez, just stick with Donnarumma and have 1 goalkeeper and also keep Joe Bellingham, who is suspended, and that means not going for Arias in my midfield because ultimately buying Cancelo, Arias, and a Fluminense or Al Hilal attacker means I am going to lose some players as well for Matchday 6 anyway, but you can get some points in the process for the quarterfinals and you don't want to neglect what's right in front of you. But I do like the balance of this midfield. It might not be the best on paper and it doesn't have Cole Palmer, for example. That's something I discussed in the best team and wildcard squads very recently. Going for Neto and Palmer simultaneously is a great play, and you could even go for Delap up front, for example, if you're backing him to start with Nicholas Jackson returning from suspension. But I think that PSG midfield duo is still very solid. But you've also got Vitinha and Fabian Ruiz, who are great options in their own right. And up front, I'm looking to go for Leonardo and Harry Kane. I think those are 2 of the best forwards for Matchday 5. And if they were to go through, they are great long-term picks potentially. And I do think Al Hilal have a decent chance of even reaching the final, to be fair. But Chelsea would be the favourites from that side of the bracket. And Bayern Munich, as good as they have been in certain games in this tournament, I think PSG would be the favourites in one of the biggest clashes we've seen in Club World Cup history. On the bench though, I've got the likes of Donnarumma, Svensson, Garcia, and Mbappe. I know he had a substitute appearance against Juventus and he wasn't exactly the best, but he just came off the back of an illness. And before that happened, he scored in 8 consecutive games for club and country. And I think he's one of the best forwards right now if he can get that match sharpness up and start the game. Because Xabi Alonso said before match day 4 that it's very likely that he will start. He did go for Gonzalo Garcia in the end, who scored once more, and it was the winning goal. But I think Mbappe, if he's ready, will start against Borussia Dortmund. And you could also go for Vinicius Jr. if you're not entirely sure about Mbappe's minutes. And I completely understand that, but I think Mbappe will start in the quarterfinals. As for the captaincy, I'm going to go for an Al Hilal or Fluminense player first, and I'm still conflicted about Arias or Leonardo. Maybe I'll flip a coin like I'm Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face, but I think Leonardo has the highest ceiling, and I slightly back Al Hilal a little bit more than Fluminense, which is why I've got 2 players from the Saudi Arabian outfit and only 1 from the Brazilian team. But they're all good options anyway, and Arias' ownership will go to over 5%, I think, before the deadline, and Leonardo is already being bought in droves, so his ownership has skyrocketed in recent days. It was previously around 1 to 2%, and now we're looking at double-digit figures there in terms of ownership. But that's all that really needs to be said about my team selection. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you think a -12 hit is excessive? And as I mentioned earlier, I am open to avoiding a goalkeeper transfer and sticking with Donnarumma and maybe keeping Joe Bellingham, and that means I'm down to 13 players, but it would be for a -6 hit and not a -12, which seems ridiculous. All of the following stats are taken by the website fantasyfootballpundit.com, and these goal scorer odds that you see on screen are with the assumption that all of these players will start, and that won't be the case. At number 1, we've got Kylian Mbappe with a 55% chance of scoring against Borussia Dortmund. Harry Kane is second. We've also got Dembele, Leonardo, and Vinicius Jr. in the top 5. Gonzalo Garcia, Gonzalo Ramos, Guirassy, João Pedro, who might not even be registered in time, by the way, but let's keep an eye out for that situation. And if he is, will he be added to Club World Cup Fantasy that quickly? I don't have any faith in FIFA or their kind of gaming team. Then we've got Delap, Kvaratskhelia, Hermangano, Palmer, and Barcola. That's essentially the top 14, if I can even count. Maybe you can just do that instead because I'm not the most reliable when it comes to that sort of thing. In terms of clean sheet odds, I've got Chelsea. I've got them. I didn't make this list, but they're top. Real Madrid are second, and Al Hilal are third. Then we've got Fluminense and Palmeiras in the top 5. PSG are 6th despite being the best team in club football right now, but they are facing a solid opponent in Bayern Munich, who are 7th, and Borussia Dortmund are bottom of the quarterfinalists with only a 14% chance of keeping a clean sheet against Real Madrid. And in fact, they both faced last season in the Champions League. Dortmund were 2-0 up, and Real Madrid won 5-2 in the end. In terms of the highest ownership, these figures will definitely change because I think it's so volatile, especially when it comes to players around 5% ownership and whether they qualify for the scouting bonus or not. But Hakimi, Elise, Kane, Kvaratskhelia, and Nuno Mendes are the highest owned players in Club World Cup Fantasy, followed by Donnarumma, Alexander-Arnold, Mbappe, Haaland, Vitinha, Desiree Doué, Bellingham, that's Jude by the way, not Job, Denzel Dumfries, and Marc Cucurella. Going into the other positions very quickly, Donnarumma, Sommer, Courtois, Neuer, and Bono are in the top 5, and you've also got Kobel in 6th. Weatherton still has quite low ownership, but it is higher than 5%, so it's going to be quite difficult, I think, to find that goalkeeper with less than 5% ownership to qualify for the scouting bonus, but Fabio would be one of them. He has currently 4.8% ownership. With defenders, Hakimi, Mendes, Alexander-Arnold, Cucurella, and all these options are right up there. Even Svensson has 13.6% ownership. Then we've got the likes of Howson. I think the others aren't really worth mentioning because they are eliminated, and Freites offers great value at 4.1 million, but you might want to go for Samuel Javier, who has very low ownership. It's around 2%, I think, at the moment, but he costs 4.2 million instead of 4.1 million. And you've also got William Bacho and Sasha Bowie, who I'd completely avoid, to be quite honest with you. In the midfielders, Elise, Kvaratskhelia, Vitinha, Doué, Jude Bellingham, Pedro Neto, Musiala, Palmer, Ousmane Dembele, who probably won't start for Paris Saint-Germain in the quarterfinals. Enzo Fernandez is a good option in Club World Cup Fantasy. He's also right up there, followed by Valverde, and that's pretty much it. The rest are eliminated. And finally, in terms of template picks, we are at the forward section with Kane in top spot, Mbappe is still second, and Guirassy is in 4th. You've also got Gonzalo Garcia with 13% ownership, but despite all his goals, he might drop down to the bench and play this sort of impact sub role. Let's see what Xabi Alonso decides come match day 5. And there's also Leonardo, who now has 9.7% ownership. That's going to go to 10% very soon, and that is pretty much it. The lap might also be worth consideration for the quarterfinals and beyond. In terms of top differentials, we have Fabio, Esteval, De Escareta, we can forget about him. He's completely gone and out of the equation. Ryerson, Arias, who I still like the look of against Al Hilal. You've also got Julian Brandt, Al Dawsari, but let's see if he's fit in time for match day 5. There's also Anton Adarabioyo, who I probably wouldn't go for despite that massive return he got back in match day 3. And Stanisic also has 4% ownership. With goalkeepers as well, Fabio is the one you really want to hone in on, because in terms of the other options, could Jorgensen start instead of Robert Sanchez? It's possible, but I wouldn't say it's likely. So I'd avoid that situation there, and maybe in my case, it's not worth the -3 hit going for the Spaniard between the sticks. With defenders, you have Ryerson, Anton, Adarabioyo, Stanisic, and Piquerez. But remember, he is suspended. Any player who has picked up 2 yellow cards in this tournament will miss the quarterfinals, but they are reset after match day 5. So it's similar to UCL Fantasy. If you played that game, you'll be quite accustomed to how these bookings and the kind of reset system all works. There is also a few other options here, like Thiago Silva, who we all know from his time at AC Milan, PSG, and Chelsea. Ben Sebaini is also another differential you could consider. Levi Colwill, Raul Asensio, obviously got red carded in the group stages. You also have Upamecano, who has just come off the back of an injury. Renan Lodi could be your differential way of covering Al Hilal defensively, and that is pretty much it in this section. Going into the differential midfielders, there is Arias, who is probably my favourite overall. There is Brandt, as mentioned earlier. Joao Neves scored a brace against Inter Miami in the round of 16. Fabian Ruiz, and you've also got a few other options like Moises Caicedo, but I don't think he offers the same attacking threat as Enzo Fernandez. And finally, with this forward section, there's Esteval, Malcolm, who also has started a few games in this tournament. And from the rest, you've got Rodrigo. I would completely avoid him right now. He has been benched in 3 consecutive games, and he's heavily linked with a move away. You've also got Paulinho, who has been a substitute for Palmeiras, but he is still scoring the goals, and he would be my favourite attacker from their team, even over Esteval, who is playing quite well actually, but he's not getting the goals or the assists. Could that change against his upcoming club, or technically his current club in Chelsea? He will join them next season, of course, after the culmination of this tournament. The last forward in this list who is still present in the Club World Cup is Mitrovic, but he has been injured for the entire tournament, and that's where Leonardo has come in at 4 million, offering tremendous value, and he's probably one of the best forwards for Matchday 5 and beyond. In the best wildcard team video and podcast from yesterday, I highlighted the quarterfinalists and also the bracket, so you're well prepared for the knockout stages. And in terms of the odds of winning this tournament, Chelsea are now top, according to Opta, with a 26.44% chance of winning this tournament. PSG are second, Real Madrid are third, then we have Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund completing the top 5, followed by Al Hilal, Palmeiras, and Fluminense. As always, let me know your thoughts down the comment section below. These are the fixtures and also the kind of order. So in the UK, Fluminense versus Al Hilal is the opening game, and that takes place on the 4th of July on the Friday. So that will be tomorrow, and I'll be going live 2 hours before the deadline, which is 3 hours before kickoff, I think. No, sorry, that was back in Matchday 1. Malfunction there in the CPU. Then we've got Palmeiras versus Chelsea, which happens at 2 a.m. in the UK. But then you've got PSG and Bayern Munich on the Saturday, the 5th of July. The same goes for Real Madrid and Borussia Dortmund. But you can still play the game the same way. You've got time to make substitutions, maybe just a shorter window actually. And if you do have, other priorities or Club World Cup fantasy isn't your life, it can be quite challenging to even remember to change your captain and stuff like that. But try to be wary. You are still able to make subs and also change your captain if needed. The only time you can't do that is for Matchday 7 for the Club World Cup final. And we saw something similar in UCL Fantasy, the Euros, and the World Cup from a few years ago. In terms of the bracket though, this is how it looks like, and as discussed previously, the winner of Palmeiras versus Chelsea will face Fluminense or Al Hilal, and on the other side of the draw, the winner of PSG versus Bayern Munich will face either Borussia Dortmund or Real Madrid. So hopefully that clears up any questions or concerns you may have. And this is one predicted 11 by Kicker, who have been quite reliable in terms of Bayern Munich in this tournament. So they've gone for Donnarumma in goal for Paris Saint-Germain, Hakimi, Marquinhos, William Bacho, and Nuno Mendes, with a midfield of Vitinha, João Neves, and Fabian Ruiz. And the front line would comprise of Kvaratskhelia, Barcola, and Doué. So that means Dembele would be on the bench once more, whilst Bayern Munich would have Manuel Neuer, Stanisic at left back, Upamecano and Jonathan Tah in central defence, Lima on the right hand side, so I would avoid Sacha Boey if you can. The midfield will be Kimmich and Goretzka. Musiala comes back into the fold with Elise on the right, Coman on the left, and Harry Kane up front. I'm not saying that this should be taken as gospel, but they are quite reliable when it comes to Bayern Munich, and maybe it could be another case of Dembele being on the bench, and I discussed this in my best wildcard team, and I discussed some alternatives there just in case you weren't really that confident of Dembele's chances of starting for the quarterfinals. So that pretty much rounds it off in terms of the fixture analysis, predicted lineups, team news, injury updates, you name it, the key stats, top differentials and budget picks, ownership figures. Everything has been condensed into this podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it and also found it insightful. But there's one more thing I want to show you before the end. My aim in these Club World Cup fantasy videos is to inform and also help as many managers as I can, but maybe you lot can also help me out. So you saw my transfer plans towards the beginning of this podcast with that potential -12 hit, but do you think a -6 hit, and you can see the potential 15-man squad on screen, do you think that will be the best course of action for the quarterfinals and beyond? It means keeping Joe Bellingham, who is suspended for the quarterfinals, and also Jan Sommer, so being limited to just one goalkeeper who also faces Bayern Munich there. So Donnarumma, as good as he is, isn't the best option in isolation for Matchday 5. And if Mbappe doesn't start, I could go for Vinicius Jr. as my premium forward there, alongside Harry Kane and Leonardo, but I'm also interested in Germán Cano from Fluminense, and I could also buy Cole Palmer with this money, and in the defensive line, buying the likes of Freitas and Renan Lodi instead of Fran Garcia and Joao Cancelo. So this would be for a -6 hit, but even in the other sort of transfer plans I discussed earlier, I could just basically keep Joe Bellingham anyway and Sommer and just do a -6 hit instead of a -12, because I think that could still be way too excessive, and ultimately those with the wild card will gain a massive advantage over those taking massive hits like myself potentially, and that's something I want to negate and try to avoid as much as possible, because maybe the starting 11 or the 12th and 13th player will be enough to have a decent score for the quarterfinals. And even in future rounds, you do get 5 free transfers for the semi-finals in Matchday 6 and up to 6 free transfers in Matchday 7. I kind of wish we had 6 free transfers right now. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also the notification bell so you never miss a single upload or live stream for Club World Cup Fantasy, FPL, and the Champions League. Follow me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the Championships, further access to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, Club World Cup Fantasy League, and Spotify can also be found in the description. I'll see you tomorrow for the Matchday 5 deadline stream, and keep your eyes peeled for FPL content, which will return very soon.